to talk about group sizes that best create movement. So, you're familiar with this, right? We've got stages 1, 2, the wall, 3, and 4. And we talk about how these lay out, right? So, stage 1, we often look to the invitation of Jesus around the multitudes, right? Come and see, right? This is review, nod your heads. And then we move into stage 2. It's many disciples, right? But we're still in that kind of feeding and miracles kind of place. So we move into 3. Now we're looking at the 12 disciples, and that kind of close to Christ or come and be with me. And then for as we move from the 3 and the 4, we have the 3, right? Peter, James, and John. Always wanted to know why in the world did they get to go on all the cool field trips with Jesus, right? Transfiguration. I mean, we all wanted to be there, but no. Peter, James, and John, right? As we move into centering in Christ, we're talking one-on-one, right? This is Peter and Jesus on the shore, right? Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep, right? And so these are a great way to understand and talk about the stages. A review, right? I want to talk a little bit about an element that is true in this slide, but may not be self-evident to you. So the physical distance between people affects interpersonal communication, right? How close you are to somebody matters, right? The kind of communication that we might give. For example, if I decide 1.5 feet, right? So Josh and I, we're going to have a conversation, right? The kind of conversation that we can have is the kind that's intimate space, right? In fact, Josh may actually be a little bit wigged out that I'm this close to him because I only met him yesterday. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I apologize. Right? I mean, we can talk about a lot. In fact, we can talk about stuff that Pat can't hear. Not because Pat doesn't want to, but because it's intimate space, right? If we move on from there, it's a personal space. Now that's a little bit different, right? If we take personal space, we're looking at 4 feet, right? And if you do radiuses, right? So personal space. That is a radius. You know, that's different, right? It's almost as if the size of your table is personal space, right? The kind of conversations that you have at the table are far different than the kind that Josh and I might have together. You notice that he leans away from me. That's right. I'm an extrovert. I'm guessing Josh isn't. All right.
Helping Jesus.
What if you look at 12 feet? I wonder, Marilyn, can I help you help me here? Because that's my prayer often. Someone help me. Okay. 12 feet. My goodness, that's a big range, right? I mean, we could sing happy birthday to Marilyn if it were her birthday, right? It would make sense, right? Do I tell her about the, difficult sin that I need forgiveness from? Hey, Marilyn, I got a problem with, right? No, it doesn't work that way, right? Now, if we go 25, don't kill anybody. Okay, stop. 25. This is public space. What did we do that took up all this space just about a half hour ago? We worshiped, right? This worked. I mean, we could worship together in a public space. I can give an announcement. The bathrooms are across the hallway and down the way, right? Do I tell Marilyn, as my spiritual director, what I need forgiveness for? Oh, no. In fact, if I try to say too many words for too long, you get tired and start doing your grocery list, right? It's public space. Okay, don't kill John. All right, so this is an interesting idea. Would you agree with the assumption here that interpersonal communication, the style of communication, depends somewhat on the closeness or distance that you are from the person you're talking to?
Yeah.
And amen.
Amen.
All right, wonderful.
Real quick,
Sir.
Does that also depend on your cultural background?
Yes.
Because some cultures, your intimate space, you can push
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think probably there's something about Presbyterians that too close. I don't know. Yeah. True, and I think so. The place where this comes out of is an article 1963 by Everett Hall. He's a cultural anthropologist. And if you think about the time and space of 1963, a whole lot of things changed, right? And so the idea is around proxemics, right? So you begin studying what type of communication happens based upon the size or distance with the closest person you're communicating to. And I really do believe there's something interesting here for stages, right? And maybe you're already seeing it lay out. So remember with me, right? Public space is 12 to 25, right? It's the space that we sing happy birthday in. It's the space that we give announcements about where the bathroom is, right? When we look at those spaces, most likely 70 people could be in that space if we did a radius. We continue on. Social spaces 4 to 12, right? This is the kind of space where maybe you teach, maybe you have, maybe you do sing happy birthday, right? This public space, probably about 15 to 70 folk in that area.
Right? Sunday school class.
A huge Sunday school class, that's right. You know, more about teaching than about sharing. This is Sunday school class, not small group. Because when we start talking about 1.5 feet to 4 feet, then we're talking about the table, right? We're looking at 5 to 15. This is more personal space, right? There's going to be more deep sharing, at least a little bit more, than where you were before. And then, at 1.5 or less, probably 1.75 for John. It's more like intimate space, right? And so that's a micro group, or maybe even me to me, right? In terms of having conversation, intimate space. At the bottom there, we go ahead and put on the stages, right? The context of discipleship where Jesus worked, right? And so all of a sudden, public space is where the multitudes happen. Mid-sized group or social space is where crowds, or the 30 disciples, right? The teaching, the traveling, the going, right? When we start talking and teaching and learning, we've got the 12 in personal space. But even then, we get smaller, right? Because we've got field trips, you know, with Jesus, Peter, James, and John, the 3. And then lastly, where does that deepest work happen? That stage 4 work, that's one-on-one. That's on the shore of the lake. Jesus saying, Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. These have proxemics can play into what we do. So here, So the actions of discipleship that might happen in the context of these groups, right? So we're taking proxemics now, and we're applying it to actual actions in church, right? In a large group, we celebrate, we pray, we listen. It's primarily what you're doing right now. In a large group. It's hard to do any of the other things. Mid-sized groups, mingle and fellowship, right? If it gets bigger than that, it's hard to mingle with everybody, or maybe that's just an extrovert thing, right? I want to shake everyone's hand when it's time to greet, right? Maybe not necessary. We begin looking at smaller spaces, personal spaces. This is spaces to discuss, spaces to be known. What are one of those things you know about stage 1s? Stage 1s want to be, it's a big word, starts with an A. Anonymous, right? So let's invite them to a small group for their first experience with the church. It's because that you kind of can't hide in a small group, right? We move from personal space into intimate space. This is where that candid sharing, that forthrightness, right? I'm not going to tell you all my deep, dark secrets, but one-on-one with somebody I trust in an intimate space for the purpose of discipleship, you better believe it. I'll bare my soul, because I know iron sharpens iron. Intimate space. So, as we continue to think about how to utilize each of these groups, I should stop for a moment. I get excited and keep going. Any questions about this? Clarification, pushback, ahas, oh no's? Yes, sir.
It would have been helpful for identifying bogies.
We can't do it all in one day.
I understand.
All right. So descriptive works because you don't need this piece to describe what's currently happening. But now as we look at
clarity.
Yeah, when we look at prescriptive, ooh, this is great, right? Let's put a tool in your toolbox. It's got to figure out how to think about holders, props, and pedals. Yes, ma'am.
Will we get copies of this?
Yes. Yeah, and do not neglect the great opportunity that you have for the next 2 weeks of having access to the vault, where there's this and much more. Yeah.
You don't know that.
Oh, sorry. It's not. You don't know that. Oh, Jesus. Okay, Dan.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Any other questions? Clarification?
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about large groups. What are some of the spaces in large groups that you do discipleship in? One should begin with W. Worship. Thank you. What else? Yeah, like a fellowship, a hymn sing, that may be old school, but at work, right?
Fall festival.
Oh, fall festival, trunk or treat, right? Any of those kind of big things, right? Celebrations. Easter egg hunt?
Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School. It's all of those little ankle biters singing about Jesus, right? You don't call them ankle? Okay, good. All right. So if we look, and this, I really want to give just a quick testimony, right? So at my church, all of the spaces are either small or large, right? We have great Sunday school classes that'll fit just about 8 to 10 people. And so you think about where that falls on the continuum, right? And we have big spaces with Fellowship Hall, and we have an activity center that was their original sanctuary, this big place, right? All these big spaces, no median spaces. In fact, I wanted to split a Sunday school class who, in a space for 10 people, they cram 30 people in. No doubt, right? They love each other. These are boomers and builders who have raised their families together. Ask them what you call your Sunday school class. They said, we're the early marrieds. Not one of them was, under 65. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, 40 years ago, that's how we came together. We're early marrieds. I said, well, you need to split. You got great DNA. I want to split you up. And the next Sunday, I kid you not, they hung pictures and painted their room as if to say, come and take it. But what I wanted is to split them up, because 30 people in a space for 10 was not allowing them to get down to that discuss and be known, and the class itself was stuck at 2. But I wanted them to go 3. So, interesting idea, right? Now, if I could get them out of that classroom, I'd knock out the wall between the 2 rooms, and then I'd have what? A medium room. A room that's kind of in that middle space. So, again, I want you to think about, what are the medium spaces that you use, right? What are the medium groups that you use? Is it fair to say that if Financial Peace University really hits its stride, chances are it's a mid-sized group? Maybe? Okay, you didn't like that one, that's right. What other medium size, right? Where are those places where mingling and fellowship are?
Super Bowl party.
A Super Bowl party, that's great. All right, we're going to come back to that, because clearly we can learn some from this, right? Wrong button. There we go. All right, and then as we continue to move down to close to Christ, we're looking at microgroups, candid sharing. Now remember, Rachel shared with us about the stages, and to this side, you need more what? Okay, they can do it. More direction. Say direction with me. And on that side, you need more what? Discernment, right? And so when you start moving into 3 and 4, it's less about programming and more about creating the space for it to happen, okay? That doesn't mean you don't program, because you need to be intentional about what you're going for. I preached to a bunch of chemical engineers. God bless all of you. I figured out that you can tell the gospel by using a pie chart. If you'd like to hear about that, I'll tell you afterwards. The details are important, right? Sometimes when they annoy me, I just round numbers unnecessarily. It's a great way to just tick them off. So, okay, sorry, too much laughter, we'll focus in, right? What I want you to hear is that they have taught me that you cannot create fire. There's no way to create fire. What you can do is create conditions conducive for fire. You can make it dry. You can put fuel. You can provide a spark, right? And so I want to say that as you get further to that side, you're looking at creating the conditions for discipleship, right? Because it's kind of like along the lines of I'm not your mentor, right? I'll be your coach, but I'm not your mentor. Why? Because you choose your mentor, right? So maybe the place where you're candid, sharing, and forthrightness is a group you choose, not the one that you fell into because you were early marrieds 40 years ago. Amen?
Amen.
And, sir.
So, looking at this, my mind goes to seeker-sensitive churches with large worship.
Yep.
Can you comment on that? Because, I mean, we're not that kind of church, but then we don't have masses coming in.
Right. Yeah, not masses either at my church. But what you can think is how to create opportunities for needs to get met or for not to derail them, right? And so one of the best things you can do, whether you're in a 20-person worship service or a 1,000-person worship service, is do not have your guests stand up and wave their hand, hey, I'm new, target-rich environment, right? Because you know they want to be what? That big word that starts with A? Anonymous, right? And so I think that, so what I want you to think is that there are many facets into understanding what element of your ministry serves which stage. Proxemics is just one perspective in. If you can get some bearing and understanding, great. But maybe you've got to go back to needs or gifts or, movement. Yes, sir.
In the 90s, I pastored a church, and often our worship was under 70. And we had to realize, finally realize, that's a mid-sized group. Nobody can have anonymity there. So let's quit trying to provide anonymity. I mean, it's just not possible for that size.
Sure. Yeah, very good. So I want to remind you that there are YouTube videos for all of these talks, a great opportunity to extend the learning. And as long as my face isn't really ugly, there'll be videos of these eventually up as well. So great opportunity to learn some more. So let's talk about those mid-sized groups, right? Because we're kind of having problems figuring out how to fill that spot, right? And so remember, we've got large groups and small groups, but notice there's nothing there in the middle. How do you bridge the gap between large and small? You could coax. I have a degree in arm twisting. Do you? Right? We could coax them to try small groups, right? Most of the people aren't in small groups because they're timid or afraid, right? Do you ever get really annoyed they won't come into the silent prayer retreat? Why? Because they're completely intimidated by that idea because it's a little bit beyond where they are, right? Same reason why my 14-year-old was terrified to get her learner's permit to drive because she's not ready, right? And I say, thank you, Jesus. And then, again, if we keep pushing towards small groups, right? Try to get the large group, the exploring Christ, into something that's close to Christ, you're really functioning around the directness of small groups just smothers them. It doesn't meet their needs. You missed it. So how do you accommodate for this? A better strategy to use groups to help people grow at all stages is you can start with corporate worship, right? You're already doing that. So you preach a sermon. I don't know about you, but when I preach, I usually generate more material that gets left on the cutting floor and doesn't happen in the pulpit, right? There's just so much good in the gospel to give them, right? And so what do you do with that good that comes out of that work? You could then, I'm on the wrong slide.
Helping Jesus.
Helping Jesus, yeah. So these are restatements, right? Events, large classes, missional communities. I've heard y'all talk about that. Small groups, and then of course quads and triads. Let me get the next series. Here we go. So you did a sermon series, right? You produce more than you need. How do you provide that in a mid-sized opportunity? You can do a midweek class for more. Let us hang on, right? Instead of the pastor or the key staff leading small groups or micro groups, instead you're in the fellowship hall and you've got folk who want to go deeper on the sermon. You take the material from Sunday morning that didn't make it into the pulpit, and now it becomes a next step for those twos to move into threes, right? This is where if you didn't want to hit hard on the importance of recognizing that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and that we're in need of the grace of Jesus Christ, boom, right there. Biblical talk about it, questions and answers, and you've got an opportunity to move twos into threes. And you didn't have to create any more material. You just used what you had. Sir?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this and then Mike's example about his worship service. What happens then when Mike's mid-sized group suddenly welcomes its 71st person? You know what I mean? Like,
It's not exact.
yeah, it's not exact, but I know. But you know what I mean? Like, as perhaps your targeted, let's say I do have a targeted mid-sized group of them, and suddenly, you know, for some reason, it works. Well, it's not that it ain't working, but that it's miracle of miracles.
It's too big.
It's too big.
The dynamics changed.
Yeah, that dynamics changed. So, I mean, is there a way to move backwards and forward and backwards?
Yeah, I think you have to get more focused on what you're doing, right? I mean, we all pray for a ton of people to show up, right? But a ton of people shows up, changes the dynamic, and so maybe there needs to be multiple offerings along the way. The 71 comment, you pastor rocket scientists, don't you? Yes. I sense the engineer in you. Yeah.
Be interested in your comment. A lot of our classes are medium-sized classes that are set up at tables for 8.
Nice.
So you get directive, large teaching, but then a breakout.
Right. So how do you use the breakout? Right. You could take 3s and 4s and have them shepherd a table. You can require people to show up at that table regularly. Now, the questions that you ask in that midweek breakdown, be careful. Don't go discernment on them, right? You got to teach basic behavior. You got to role model the faith. You got to embed it in the Bible. You got to teach them simple ways to pray, right? So don't mistake the fact, because they came to the big group for a reason, right? And your culture may create the tables or the small groups in such a way that they do dive deep. And then maybe you've got a collection of small groups and of 3s and not 2s anymore, right? So it's a matter of paying attention to the dynamics. Sir?
Is there an element that you could do like programmed obsolescence into an event where it says at such and such a time this is going to end?
Yeah, you read my slides. Yeah. So one of the ways to help small groups still be effective is limit the time so they expire, right? And so instead of a reading group that's met for 30 years, you have a short-term Bible study about prayer that goes for 6 weeks. So you've just cut the intimacy and the tenure, but you're still serving the needs for 2s. Yeah.
I know of a church that has like a large men's group, so it would be like your 70 size group or larger.
Sure.
But one of the things that sounded like it worked for them was they would only have meet for a certain amount of time in the fall, a certain amount in the spring, but then the pastor would invite them, whoever wanted to get into a small group, meet for coffee in their small group, and they would provide a devotional series you guys could do on your own in the summer. So these guys that had gotten a little closer could just meet casually, and they didn't feel like, oh, we're creating a small group, but that's what they were doing without realizing.
Yeah, names are great for us, not always good for them, right? So you got to think about and do the typology. I want to push on, right? So one of the ways to do this, and we've done this regularly at our church, is you provide sermon discussion questions, right? So now instead of the fellowship hall where I'm doing more of my material from the sermon in a different way, now we actually put it out on Facebook. It's a sermon discussion guide. And so we've empowered people to say, hey, at the table for dinner, let's talk about what the preacher talked about. Right? Or let's get the small group together that still wants to meet, but they don't think they're a small group, but they still want to meet, right? Oops, we just did, right? And remember that your sermon and worship are your strongest strategic tool because you have the most people at one point having the same experience. So you're getting more out of that strategic opportunity. And so, we do sermon discussion questions on Facebook, and we expect it to kind of seed that opportunity for others. Points and questions for deeper discernment. So, Oren, wave your hand at me. Patty Faye, raise your hand at me. These are my church members. They will keep me honest, right? So feel free to fact check me with them later on, right? And then you can say, help me, Jesus. So in the bulletin, we got one whole panel that's text to read, questions to ponder, things to do and share. And they're written differently for each sermon. It's back to that stuff that didn't make it in the sermon. But now we're talking about deep stuff. I mean, so we're talking about hospitality, right? So I've got a couple of texts to read, and these are books These are not just, oh look, isn't this, chicken soup for the soul opportunity on a website, right? No, this is if you want to dive deeper, there it is. Things to do, right? Invite your neighbors over for hospitality one evening, have them all bring a dessert. Easy, right? But it gets you out of your comfort zone. Gets you more missional, right? The other piece, the questions to do and share, is think about over the last 12 months, who you've invited intentionally into your home. Think about their age, their race, their socioeconomic class, and then offer to God a prayer about whether you need to change your habits of hospitality. Do you see the difference, right? That's not stuff I'm going to say. That's not stuff that I'm going to say in a fellowship hall medium-sized group to choose. I will run them off, right? They'll be terrified. But fours, it's discernment. Did I lie? Okay, thanks. All right. So what are some examples of mid-sized groups? I saw these on your descriptive path yesterday, right? Some of you are like doubling down on this stuff, right? Some of you have alpha as a stage 1. Not a bad thing. Depends on how many people you can put in the room, right? But alpha's a great mid-size group. It's that 2. It's that coach. It's moving from belief into intimacy, right? Emotionally healthy relationships. These are powerful. So whether it's, let's go ahead and pick some of these out. So emotionally healthy relationships, marriage matters, financial peace, and divorce care. All of those are small group care kind of approaches, right? That this particular church, I think it's Grace and Katie. Grace Fellowship and Katie uses this approach. Julia, one of their staff members over discipleship, tells us that people come to those helping groups sometimes before they come to worship. Now we're back to open door. Instead of focusing on the front door and making sure everybody shows up for Sunday morning worship, we've now figured out how to be meaningful to them, to help them, right? And what do these things tend to address? Historic wall issues. I know we haven't talked about the wall yet. It's kind of Maryland's going to do a great job, right? But you're getting them ready for the wall. Or after they have bounced off the wall, we're going to care for you. And it's not tied to whether you showed up to worship. It's interesting. Right? Let's see, men's and women's small groups. I think that's again kind of how to live, right? Yes, sir.
So I'm thinking of alpha. You said it's maybe more 2, and I've always thought of it as 1, but maybe it's depending on where you are, because is 1 to draw them in, or is 1 the people that are working the alpha group? I see.
Oh yeah, so maybe 2's work for 1.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not an engineer. I love the discernment process of throw it all against the wall and see what sticks. So if you're looking for tight, clear, I'm more messy. Now, I would say, and maybe point of confession, I was ADD before ADD was cool. I mean, like, there's kids that are like, whatever. I was back in the day when they didn't have Ritalin, right? You just had to count the number of ants that were crawling across your toe in the middle of worship, right? Not that we had ants, it was a big deal. Anyways, so, like, chase the rabbit, shiny object, got it, right? So I could have taken alpha 3 times and still not got to stage 2. And so what is it like to think about that boulder being more, right? So yeah, your participants are 1, people who offer and lead it are 2, but maybe it's a gradual process to it, right? It's not. I don't think discipleship's 1 and done. That's a better way to put it.
Also, might be that alpha, you're not going to draw those who are of a high need for anonymity, right? So you can draw a certain kind of number 1 person to alpha, but there's some people that even that is just makes sense.
Can you be anonymous in alpha? No, that Holy Spirit retreat kind of gets real serious, right? So yeah, great. Thank you. That's a great question. So I want you to take an opportunity. If you're not sitting at a table in your church, sit with someone from your church. I know some of y'all have huge groups, and our tables are built for small groups, and they're not small. So use the proxemics to your advantage. Laugh. That's a joke. Hey, thank you. All right. So how do you create the different group sizes in your church? right? It's not Mike's church, not my church, right? You didn't have engineers. How would you do that? Are there sizes you're missing? Within your upcoming events or activities, how can you give people experience of the next smaller size group, right? Actually I missed this point, but your question about large groups, small groups, right? So if you do it right, you're giving twos a glimpse of three. But just be careful at how intimate the questions get, right? So that's a way to give them a look at what's next, right? Remember that stagnation is a terrifying thing, right? People get stuck too long in a particular stage. They get resentful, they get a little toxic. And so we always want to kind of create that movement along. Any questions about this? I think we're giving you like 10 minutes to kind of talk through it. So really get into the conversation. And then we'll have about 5 minutes and report out on the other side.